Why did the Viking Age end? They conquered half of Europe, and then they vanished.
1,000 years ago, Europe feared one thing more than storms. When these ships reached shore, villages burned, and kings learned to fear the north.
In 793, a monastery called Lindisfarne became the first warning. The Viking Age had begun. They raided England, terrorized France, sailed into Russia, and crossed oceans no one thought they could survive. But they were not just raiders. They were traders, shipbuilders, explorers, and conquerors.
For nearly 3 centuries, it seemed nobody could stop them.
So what happened? Who finally defeated the Vikings? Or did they destroy themselves?
But to understand their end, we must first go back to the frozen world that created them.
Scandinavia was beautiful, but it did not forgive weakness.
Here, a man was not measured by words, but by courage, strength, and steel. In this world, violence was not chaos. It was survival.
Inside the Longhouse, boys heard stories of Odin, glory, and Valhalla. To die in battle was not the end. It was the doorway to eternity. But courage alone did not make Europe tremble. The Vikings had one weapon no kingdom could match. It was not just a ship. It was the machine that turned the sea into a battlefield.
The secret of Viking power was not their axe, it was their ship. It was lighter, faster, and deadlier than any ship in Europe. It could cross oceans and sail deep into rivers. No coastline was safe. No river was far enough. The Vikings could appear without warning and disappear before an army arrived.
Kings built walls. The Vikings simply sailed around them. Were the Vikings the greatest sailors of the medieval world?
And in the year 793, Europe was about to find out exactly what these ships could do. Lindisfarne was not a fortress. It was a holy place, alone in the sea. The monks prayed for salvation, but death was already rowing toward them. Then, through the fog, the dragon heads appeared. In a single day, a quiet island became a warning to every kingdom in Europe. There was no warning, no army, no wall strong enough to save them. The news spread like fire. Men from the north had attacked the house of God. To Christians, they were demons. To themselves, they were men seeking glory. But Lindisfarne was only the beginning. Soon, the Northmen would come for entire kingdoms. Lindisfarne was not the end of the story. It was the beginning. Soon, the dragon ships were everywhere. Village after village, kingdom after kingdom. Then the Vikings realized something. Why raid the land when you can own it? In England, they carved out a new Viking world. In France,
they became something even more dangerous.
The land of the Northmen would become Normandy.
But Europe was not enough. The Vikings were about to sail beyond the edge of the known world. But Europe was only the beginning. The Vikings wanted the world beyond the horizon. They found Iceland, a land of ice, fire, and impossible survival. Then they pushed farther, to Greenland, where even the earth seemed hostile.
And then came the claim that still shocks people today. They reached North America before Columbus.
They called it Vinland, a strange new land of forests, timber, and promise.
But reaching a new world was one thing. Holding it was another. So why does history remember Columbus, and not the men who came 5 centuries earlier?
They had reached the edge of the world. But their greatest power was still to come.
The Vikings were no longer just raiders. They were becoming rulers. The same men who once burned kingdoms now claimed them.
In England, Viking law carved a scar across the land.
Their power was no longer only in the axe, but in law, trade, and land. In France, the Northmen became Normans, and history would never be the same. Maybe the Vikings did not disappear. Maybe they simply changed their name.
Then came Knut the Great, a Viking king who ruled across the North Sea.
But at the height of their power, the Vikings began to stop being Vikings.
No single battle destroyed the Vikings. The world around them changed.
The Vikings no longer faced helpless villages. They faced kingdoms.
Europe learned. Walls grew higher. Armies moved faster. The old raids became harder. And many Vikings stopped raiding because they had something to lose. Old gods faded. New laws rose. The warrior world was becoming a kingdom world. So maybe they were not defeated. Maybe they were absorbed by the world they helped create.
But one final warrior still believed the old way could return.
His name was Harald Hardrada, and in 1066 he set sail on one final journey.
Harald Hardrada did not come to England as a raider. He came as a king.
At first, victory seemed inevitable. Then came a surprise no Viking expected.
On September 25th, 1066, 2 worlds met at Stamford Bridge.
Then Harald Hardrada fell. The Vikings fought with the fury that had terrified Europe for centuries.
It was not just the death of a king. For many historians, it was the end of the Viking Age.
The Viking Age ended. But the Vikings did not simply vanish.
They became farmers, traders, nobles, and kings inside the very lands they once attacked. Their ships disappeared, but their blood, language, and legends remained. If a people changes the world and then becomes part of it, did they truly disappear? The Viking Age died. But the Viking spirit never truly left the world. So what were they? Heroes, invaders, or survivors of a brutal world? Tell me in the comments. If you want more stories of warriors who changed history, subscribe before the next saga begins. Because next, we follow the boy who lost everything and built the largest land empire in history.